While I was at lunch, somebody came to the store and they spray paint KKK over the whole front of the store,
Girl. Okay. But
right?
were you scared?
The next thing I knew, I was being investigated. There was an investigation, a threat of violence.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Coffee No Cream podcast. My name is Erin Braxton and I am your host of Coffee No Cream. Here on Coffee No Cream, we are unapologetically dedicated to Black women and we share what I like to call coffee no cream moments, those things that happen to us Black women in business and in life just because we are Black. Now, today I have a guest, Stephanie Davis, and she is going to share the wildest story I think I've had. I was not expecting this, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm just gonna say her experience involves an organization that has three Ks in it. Okay, that's all I gotta say. And it was surprising. It was shocking, and obviously traumatic. Okay. So you guys stay around for that. Before we get into that though, guys, I just want to ask that you please share, like, comment, all of the things, and absolutely subscribe to the channel. My goal with Coffee No Cream is to create an environment that is a safe space for Black women to talk about the things that are happening to them in the workplace, the things that are happening to us in life. What is going on with us? This is a safe place. So please do all of those things. We want to build and uplift and grow the community. In addition to the YouTube channel here or Spotify or wherever you're listening, we have a community on Facebook. I've got the link below or in the show notes if you're listening, where we continue those conversations. Everybody cannot come on to a microphone onto this internet and share their business about what's going on with them. They have jobs, they have people looking at them, eyes everywhere, and they truly do need a safe place, but they want to continue the conversation. We are doing that in the Facebook community. So with that said, I think all the housekeeping is done, and I will see you over in the episode where we have a shocker today. Hey, Stephanie, how are you today?
I am blessed. Thank you for having me.
Oh, God, thank you for being here. I'm so excited. So, Stephanie here is going to share with us one of her coffee no cream moments. I have no idea what it is. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, coffee no cream moments are those moments that happen to us Black women just because we are Black. And I'm just going to turn it over to Stephanie and let her tell us the story. So, Stephanie, tell us your coffee no cream moment.
I like to say thank you. At first, I have to say thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to not just share my coffee no cream experience, but to have the opportunity to go back and examine the impact that it had. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Ironically, it didn't naturally come to my, psyche when I was trying to consider what were my coffee no cream experiences, right? And I
Mhm.
say experiences because it wasn't just one, but the one that I feel like that was the most profound, I was able to go back to and examine and look at it and actually learn a little bit about myself and about, Black women that have these cultural, because I call it cultural, right? Because it happens to nobody else, right?
Right.
These cultural experiences and how we have to deal with them, right? And so my coffee no cream experience happened when I still lived in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was at a time where I was in the cellular industry, right? So I sold cell phones. I started selling cell phones back when there were still bag phones, or when you still had your phone installed into your car, so back in those days.
When it would take like all day to get a mobile phone in your car. Yeah.
Right, when you had to make an appointment to
Yes.
go to
Yes.
the cell
Yeah.
phone store, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So they had done some restructuring with the company and they had closed our particular store. And our store was one of the biggest stores, but it was one of the busier stores, right? And so they closed our store, and part of that is that they didn't want to terminate everybody. So they found, a placement for them. So I was transferred to another location. And this location was in Jefferson County, right?
Ooh,
And this
yeah.
was at a, I'm not going to tell my age, but this in Jefferson County was just being developed, right? Where it was an expansion. So you saw a lot of new homes being built, new subdivisions. And when that comes, you got the strip malls that go along with it. And in those strip malls, you're going to have these cellular stores, right? And so I'm fearless. I can go to Jefferson County. I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. I get along with all people. I don't have an issue with non-Black people. So
Yeah.
everybody made a big deal out of it. It was a long drive for me, right? And that was the biggest deal for me. It wasn't that I wouldn't see other Black people or other people of color, right? To me, it was more like, man, this is 45 minutes away from home for me to keep my job, but I like what I do and I'm good at
Mhm.
it, right? So I transferred to this store and I feel like I'm okay. I can remember I had one guy, it was an older guy. His name was Corky. I'll never forget his name.
Mhm.
And Corky was a white guy who probably had never seen Black people before, but he loved me, right? And even I imagine the adults. This is the first time they've actually seen a Black person, in
Right.
their neighborhood.
Mhm.
Everybody else that worked with me was, non-Black, I'll say. I
Yeah.
think that one of the guys might have been Greek.
Right.
Just honestly, one girl might have been Jewish, but in their eyes, they're white, right?
Right.
And so it just made for an interesting day. So, life is okay. I have a job that I enjoy, that I'm good at. I am going outside of my comfort zone and I'm being received okay, right?
Mhm.
So actually, some of my customers followed me all the way from U City to Jefferson County, right?
Okay.
Because they would not have anybody else help them.
Mm.
To stay on, I guess, topic, one day I was coming in from lunch and my boss is coming out of the door. And I was like, well, I'm looking at the clock, because Christy is uptight. I'll never forget her name. Christy is uptight, but I'm not late. Why is she coming?
Christy is your boss.
She's, yeah, Christy is
Okay.
my boss. And it's like, what is going on? And she's coming out the door and she's coming. It's her energy that I'm, feeling, right?
Right.
And she's like, just come walk with me. Just come walk with me. Okay, Christy, I'll come walk with you. And something happened at the store, and I just want to tell you about it before you see it. And I want you to know that however you react is okay. I just need you to know that I'm here with you, right? And so while I was at lunch, somebody came to the store, brand new building, everything is brand new in this neighborhood, and they spray paint KKK over the whole front of the store.
Girl. Okay. Okay. So just for people who don't, you're not from St. Louis area, you don't know, but Jefferson County, right? Whatever. Jefferson County,
Same
the
thing, Johnson County.
old white guys at the Y that I swim with, the older white guys that I swim with, talk trash about Jefferson County. That's how bad Jefferson County is. Even to this day, they talk about it. When I say they talk about it, they talk about I guess their complaint was lower class Caucasians, white people in Jefferson County, which is very problematic for Black people, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Okay, go on with your story. I just wanted to, like, even white people complain about this part of town. So,
You
okay, go.
know, I've been out of St. Louis for 12 years,
Yeah,
right? And so I would hope that it would be more integrated, right? It was very beautiful,
yeah,
a lot of trees,
yeah.
just a beautiful area. And so I would hope that they move toward something that's, more diverse, more of color. But this was the time where they were moving from the trailer parks that they
Right.
had been notably noted for to big, beautiful homes, right? And so, it's a little disheartening that I was maybe the last Black person in
So,
Jefferson County. So immediately my response, right, was of like, they can't scare me. They're cowards,
but
right?
were you scared?
I wasn't scared.
You had no fear. Somebody wrote KKK on the window of your job, and you didn't have any fear.
That wasn't my first response. My first response was anger. My first response was, um, they are trying to instill fear in me, and that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I won't give them. I will not give them the satisfaction of instilling fear in me. You got to remember, I'm her, right? That will not watch during Black History Month. You remember they used to play the Martin Luther King movie, right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
Every year around his birthday, and then again when it's Black History Month, the assassination of Martin Luther King. I would not watch. It would make me too angry, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I always imagined that if I was in the civil rights time, right, I would be the one that would be out there marching. And so I didn't lose my cool. Like I wasn't like angry to the point where,
Right. Okay.
like
Okay.
but I was like, oh no, they won't deter me. I'm going back in here and I'm going to go to work.
Uh,
Like I'm going to work,
okay. Okay. Can I
right?
ask you, was Sandy's her mother, was she scared for you? Come on now.
Of course she was.
Okay.
Of course she was. She was very concerned. Like I told you, it was a lot of people who were concerned when I
Yeah.
told them that I was being transferred to Jefferson County.
Mm-hmm. Experienced some stuff, but
Mhm.
that I haven't. And even when I was at Mizzou, people had stories about seeing, hoods on campus in the middle of the night,
Wow.
things like that. My trainer actually grew up somewhere in Illinois, and he said there was a cross burned in their yard. But yeah, that's wow. I'm just like, I did not I did not expect you to say that. Jesus. Okay, so you go back in. Okay, your boss comes in, she says what she says, and your initial response is anger.
Mhm.
And then what happens? You just go back into work and work
It
the
was a
rest of the day?
defiance.
Huh?
No, she wouldn't let me. It was a defiance. I was like, absolutely not. We won't get them the satisfaction, right? I'm
Yeah.
not going home. I'm okay,
Okay.
But that I went home. I went home and I think I stayed home for as long as it took them to get the spray paint off of the brick,
Yeah.
right? Because this is not even something that you can come
Yeah.
paint over,
Right.
right? This is glass and brick front. So,
Did they pay you while they figured it out? Like,
oh yes,
okay.
absolutely,
Yeah, okay.
absolutely,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely. I mean, it doesn't stop there, right? So
Okay.
I wish that was like the end of the story.
I'm
You
like,
would
what
think
else? What? Okay.
that's not that's the beginning of the story,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So I come back and the KKK is gone.
Okay.
And I got along. Remember, life is great,
Right,
right?
right.
I'm getting along with my customers. They are very responsive to me. They don't treat me funny,
Right,
right?
right.
When they come in, they want to buy a cell phone, so they don't care who helps them,
Sure.
right? And I remember I told you I'm really good at what I do, right? And
Right,
so
right.
I'm building my clientele in Jefferson County, and I go back to work. This is removed from the front of the store, and one of the ladies that I work with, she was an older lady, and we would have our little meetings that we would have before we open the store, and I think that we were having some girlfriend time, right? And I was like, I think I said something playful about, "Oh, girl, we will box if I found out that this da 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 da," right?
Yeah.
And I can't tell you exactly what I said, but it was something along that nature, right?
Hmm.
And the next thing I knew, I was being investigated. There was an investigation, a threat of violence to her. This was not even a month later. So,
Uh-huh.
and that's why remember at the open, I told you that I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to go back and just remember,
Right.
right? Because I think part of this Black experience is that we always downgrade what happens to us. We excuse it away, we minimize it, we put it on the shelf, we forget it, we suppress it, right? And I think that that's exactly what I had done, right?
Mm-hmm.
That investigation took about 30 days, but it was no pay, but I would be paid, right? In the event that there's nothing that's founded, right?
Right,
There's no
right.
evidence of this threat, and they're going to do this in-depth investigation about this threat to this white woman from this black woman, right? And that is what made me nervous.
Wow.
So the KKK,
That's crazy.
the KKK did not make me nervous, but this investigation did, right? Because
White
this
women with a
was
mission.
it's white women with a mission, but this was just right behind the KKK incident. So
Uh,
like it's like the 1-2 blow. And I'm
right,
like,
right.
right. So they're coming for me. And after like 30 days, I get a check for 30 days.
Okay,
I get a check for 30
okay.
days and they
And what did
bring
they
me
do with
in.
her?
They apologize. She kept her job, but
Mm,
but
yeah,
they transferred me
two.
to Northwest Plaza. They
Oh, wow. Okay.
gave me a promotion. So this was my first management position. I was a manager over a kiosk inside of Northwest Plaza. It was inside of the Sears building, right? So
Uh-huh,
inside of the
uh-huh.
Sears store, they
Yeah,
had a kiosk, right? A store. We had a regular store up in the mall, right?
right. Yeah.
But this particular kiosk, they needed a manager for, and so that's how they shut me up.
Girl,
So
because
the
that was a EEOC filing waiting to happen.
that is what I realized.
Yeah.
So would I say
Because
thank
you
you
could
for
have
letting,
sued them for so much money. Just
and
on
I
the
had no
K, well,
idea.
probably not on the KKK, but that investigation,
Hmm.
if you would have been a different type of person,
No, if I had been more
knowledgeable.
aware, if I
Yeah.
had been more aware, if I had been a little bit more angry, right? If I had been um a little bit more, if I had a little bit more money, right? Because what happens is that the brokest people, the poorest people are the people that are suppressed the worst, right? So if I have money to just go get a lawyer, right, to fight this, but I think a lot of times these travesties happen to people who can't afford to fight.
Well, and I think now we know, now you know, I know just from being older, you think you can't afford it. But lawyers, and this is for anybody who's watching,
Mhm.
like if something does happen to you where, legal action needs to take place, there are many lawyers, if they see the case and they know that this is extremely like there's a case, they'll take you on. They'll just take it off the back end, right? So, I think too, like if, I didn't know this. I actually didn't know this until my mom died, the way she passed away, because we
Mhm.
had a lawyer working for a year, but he's working knowing that there is some malpractice that happened, blah, 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 but that's a lot of people don't know that. So, yeah, you could have definitely. So, are you mad at yourself for that, for not doing that? Do you think when you think back, or I mean, when you're thinking about it now, because normally I would ask you something like, hey, is there something you feel like you would have done differently? You've already told us how you felt. You were
Mhm.
angry, you know, and you weren't angry enough when this happened. So when the woman
Mhm.
filed the case, but do you feel like you're mad at yourself for not doing something more?
No, I'm not mad at myself. I think that going back and taking a look at this has put another, I guess another tool in my toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I am empowering other people, when I'm sharing my story now, right? And we only share our stories when really is there's some benefit in it for the people we're sharing it to, right? So
Mm-hmm.
whether it's young people, whether it's just women who lack, that particular information, right? I'm sharing my story. And so it just gives me another tool in my toolbox. What I did learn, the reason why I wasn't angry is because of the background that I have, right? How I grew up. And so while I largely lived in the city of St. Louis most of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my most formative years, I lived in University City.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time I lived there, it was Jewish, white, Black, Muslim, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese. There was everything. We had the perfect melting pot.
Yeah, it was more for those of you who are listening. U City is more, I guess, suburban at the time. I feel like we have this migration, obviously, that's happened. It happens in all cities where once upon a time people were more in the city, and then they start to move further and further out to get
Hmm.
to more segregated areas. So yeah, U City it did used to be primarily Jewish, I believe, before it
It
was,
was.
yeah,
It was a
primarily
Jewish
Jewish.
town.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, I had a really, all my Girl Scout troop, they were largely white girls. All
Yeah.
my friends were white girls.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Like, even though I still hung out with black girls, I just didn't have the same experience that other people had, right? I
Right.
felt like, and I'm a preacher's kid, so I love what God loves, and I know that God loves all people, right? And so I didn't have any hatred in my heart or any insecurities about white people love me. You know what I'm saying? I get along with
Yeah.
everybody,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no issues here. And I think that what I learned is that being liked is not the same thing as being valued.
Mm.
And that
That
was my
that's real.
key takeaway, I swear. And so, yeah, I wouldn't go back and necessarily change it, right?
Uh-huh.
Because if that was the case, who knows what you're changing? Who knows
True.
what that new journey is going to be, right? And I like how I've developed.
Yeah.
I can say that through it all, I remained Stephanie.
Yeah.
It didn't change my spirit. It didn't make me become something that I hated, right? Because it could have made me very. You got people who don't like white people or who hate white people because white people hate them,
Yeah.
right? That they've now become the very thing they hate. They put all people in one bucket,
Yep.
right? And I refuse to do that.
Mm.
I still approach every single situation authentically, genuinely. I can't be even like right now, right?
Yeah.
I can't, everything is not so polished and eloquent and things like that, but it's sincere. And
Yeah.
that is like if that is one thing that I'm going to be noted for when I leave this earth, I'm okay with that. You know?
So do you think, okay, so you think when that KKK, because that is traumatic to say the least. That's like, it's, trauma, you can have, I mean, who's to say what's more traumatic than, somebody else's trauma? But for me, that is some traumatic shit. Like,
I'm crazy, right?
I'm just like, so like when I sit up here on this podcast and I talk to different
Mhm.
people and people are telling me their stories, all the time, I could be like, yeah, that reminds me of the time such and such happened to me, or, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I can relate to that because yeah, I had, for me, so I can riff, I can go with you, you know what I'm saying? Like I never had anything like that. That right there. So that whole KKK, that's harsh. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I've been called an N-word, but KKK means something completely different because there is so much violence historically associated with that organization. And, it's totally understandable that you would take, which is such a traumatic thing. I don't care. And I'm saying like how you grew up. Like, yes, you grew up, your family is lovely. All of you guys are the sweetest, most wonderful people, just the
Thank you.
nicest people, right? But, and just kind, good-hearted people. But yeah, so I would think that something like that happens, and for your parents, something like that happens to your kid. That is something I probably would push down, maybe not
Sure.
intentionally, subconsciously. Because I find myself, reaching. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, and this other thing happened, and this other thing. Like I said, somebody comes on here, and you said, you had pushed this down. So surely it
And I
must
guess
have.
that's what I could change. Like if
Yeah.
there was one thing that I would change, that would be the thing that I would change, right? And if I
Mhm.
had to tell the story, I would lead with always listen when people are talking to you, right?
Mhm.
And never downplay anybody's, for instance, right?
Right.
And even when we can't say, oh, oh yeah, that's because you black girl. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, this this is clearly, racism. Even we have to be careful and examine things, but we also have to respect our discernment, right? Our gut feeling, our women's intuition, all of the things, right?
Mhm.
That there's a possibility, right? And so while we might not be able to prove, what it is that we feel is happening, right? You being able to say it out loud, right? Puts it on record. So the very next thing that happens, if that happens, right? Now you're getting your, affirmations. You're actually getting, this is now becoming a pattern, or now this is the evidence to what you were feeling, right? And this is the validation that you need to go forward. And, and I would always, like, even if you're feeling some kind of way, I would always encourage you to go to HR and let them do their investigation, right? Because they did their investigation and they came out on the right side of this. What I learned from the investigation was that they spoke to my coworkers at
Mhm.
present, they spoke to my coworkers past, right? And everybody got to speak about what Stephanie, who she was and who she wasn't in their eyes, right? And it was unanimous, right? That is not the nature that Stephanie, you know, um, operates in, and that definitely was misconstrued. Something that was so innocent and playful and comfortable. Was made to be something ugly. And I think that the first thing, the KKK spray painted outside of the store, was a
Yeah.
catalyst, right, for more racism. Well, okay. She's not afraid of this, but would she be afraid of losing her job? And I can make that happen. And you don't even know. Like, ate breakfast with this lady. I shared donuts and orange juice with her. You know what I'm saying? We
Was she
talked.
friendly to you before all this happened? Like,
She
y'all were
was.
cool?
Yeah, I would have never known. I would have never seen it coming. It was very
Mhm.
disheartening. It was very hurtful. But you get caught in now the fact that, okay, she's not my friend. And now I'm facing losing my job, the job that I took so much pride in because, again, right, it paid me well. I made a lot of money
Yeah.
and I liked it. I did a good job there. I
Yeah.
enjoyed what I did, right? And so, but here I am today. I still have a positive spin on it, right? Because if those things hadn't happened, right, I wouldn't have understood the courage that I would have when I faced that situation with the KKK. I wouldn't have had faith in HR doing their job and coming out on the right side of things,
Mhm.
right? And then I wouldn't have had my management experience, seriously, that, I still use those skills that I learned in those roles today, you know?
Yeah, I feel like your story is unique. The KKK story is unique. Management coming on the right side of things. For some of us listening, that's not the case. And I just want to touch back on something you mentioned. You mentioned using your intuition, like in going to HR when there's a problem. Did you anticipate or see a problem before this happened? You said you didn't see it coming. So,
I didn't see it coming at all, but that could have been because of, my lens, right? That just ties right back to the fact that I grew up around white people. You know what I'm saying? I grew up around everybody.
it's okay if you're not okay when this stuff happens, right? It's it's nice to be like, well, this great thing came out of it and I became, a better person and da 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 da
Yeah.
da. But
And
you
I'm
know what?
okay.
This
Mhm.
this is this is deep stuff. This is deep shit. KKK paintings and, getting accused of violence and put on, temporary leave and all of this stuff, those are things that are just not okay. But I think it's
Not
okay
okay.
for us to acknowledge that they're not okay. I think it's okay for us to seek help because for you pushed
Mhm.
on through that, but a lot of people would be still trying to get up from the ground from that. You see
I
what I'm
get that. I do.
That
I do. I
that
get
was
that.
a big one. Like, I wasn't expecting that story, but I don't wanna make light of it because people are going through seemingly less, and it's really, really affecting them in a way that is crippling, that is terrible for them, and that they cannot even cope and deal with. I mean, I think, wow, okay. And I'm wondering, as you've recalled this and you said, and you're realizing that this happened, and like that was really, really bad. I mean, I hate to say, like that was just
Yeah,
like,
I
and
think.
I love that you have that lens that you can look through and stuff. But as long as you do the work and you're like, okay, this was bad, and how did it affect me? And perhaps it did affect me in ways that I'm not. And there are experts who say, you know what, don't go dig that up. I've heard these.
Mm,
Don't even
mm-hmm.
go dig that up. Why are you going to look for the trauma so that you can bring it back up to the surface so that you can try to heal from it? Some,
Well, I learned a few things, you
yeah,
know. I learned
yeah,
a few things just by going back and examining this, and this opportunity to come on and speak about it is what incited that. And I'm grateful. I really am. I
mm-hmm,
think that when you get past the fact that this can happen to me, you know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot of times in a lot of things we're like, oh, this will never happen to me,
right,
because, this is how I approach things, or, this is how people receive me. And so it's won't happen to me. And I pride myself on being blackety, blackety, black. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Seriously, I
yeah,
am the same no matter where I go. But this can happen to you, Stephanie. You know what I'm saying? And that when things like this, they do happen, right? It's not okay to sweep it under the rug,
no,
right?
yeah, I think
It's
that's the
not
thing,
healthy to sweep it under the rug. I think that it would have been so much better, if I could have had the time, the bandwidth to even deal with it. But I think really the idea was that I didn't. Because you got to
mm,
remember where I was, right? Where I was in life. I was in a growth pattern. And at the time, I had a young daughter that I
mm-hmm,
had to take care of. And so I was, trying to establish myself in what I thought could be a career. And so we enslave ourselves to these jobs. We felt like, okay, there's no other job beyond this one. And I
right,
have to have this, and I have to do a really great job at it, and I have to make a lot of money. But there are other jobs. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? There are other opportunities. You know what I'm saying? And we do need to take a moment, and it's okay. You know what I'm saying? But really, I was.
I think the important part here, the takeaway is, and I don't even know because I'm not equipped to even speak it intelligently enough on this, but there's, and maybe I can explore this on another episode, but this whole suppressing, and I've done it, but then if you find later, and this is just my advice, you suppress these things, and you push them down, because a lot of times you just push it down, because you got to
Mhm.
keep going. And
Right.
but if you find yourself struggling later on, there might be a reason to bring it back up. Some people want to stay with it pushed down, but I think a lot of times it affects us. This brain doctor that I listen to sometimes, he talks about, why dig it up? Just, do EMDR, which I've done. EMDR, it's EMDR therapy, where you follow these shapes on the screen, and it helps you with PTSD, So
Mhm.
some people say just do that and help yourself with your trauma and different things like that. But I just want to say to anybody else, like, or you've pushed it down, you've suppressed it, but it's okay if you're not okay after something like that happens. Like Stephanie dealt with it the way that she deals with it. And I'm like that too. Like, I'm a bury my head in the sand type of person, and I plow through, and I've done that for many, many years. But what I realize is, and sometimes you need a little nurturing. You need something after something like that happens, which I'm sure everybody was ready to give you. But if that's just not the way you push through, but it's okay after something happens to not be okay. You know what I'm saying? And then to
Yes.
go get and seek the help, the counsel, the community, whatever it is that you need to seek to get through something like this, or even if it's not to this extreme, because a lot of the things that I know my listeners, my viewers are going through is so super traumatic to the point where they're having physical symptoms, they don't want to go
Hmm.
into work, So it's truly, you are blessed, because it is truly a blessing that you were able
Yeah.
to pick yourself up from that situation and push on, because that is, girl, you could have just ended up holden, fearful, people are scared to even like step out of their homes, and you just did not let that happen to you. So kudos to you on that. People are watching, and a lot of people have gotten very personal about some of the things that are going on with them and their work environments and stuff like that. So I don't want anybody to feel like, well, she did it, because people do that compare thing.
Yeah, well, I feel like there's it's worth saying though, it's okay if you're okay, right? Because we don't necessarily have to sign up to be, the victim. We don't have to necessarily sign up for the trauma. I think sometimes people feel like something bad happened and I have to be the small in it. I know you don't have to be the small in it. It's okay if you're okay. But that doesn't mean that the story itself should be suppressed,
Yeah.
right? So, seriously, in me going back to revisit this situation, there was value in me realizing that the reason why you got that management job right after that was hush money,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And even with that hush money, there was a price you still had to pay because you were still very much so suppressed. You thought that this was a promotion and really this was just more control,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So, like I said, when I say that there's layers to this, there's layers to this. And who's to say that going back and revisiting this won't come full circle again? Because I still work in a
Yeah.
situation, right, where, my internal customers and my cohorts at work, they're all white. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I would challenge anybody who would suggest that there's no value in bringing these things back up. And I would also challenge people who say, that every time that we are definitely injured. There's an injury that occurs. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's not necessarily an injury, but the thing happened, right? And what happens is it equips us to deal with it, right? If it should ever manifest again, it's a
Mhm.
tool now in
Mhm.
my toolbox,
Mhm.
so to speak. I can't thank you enough. And
You can always look back and connect the dots, and that's just a word of encouragement for anybody if you can find it in there, because like what you're going through might be hell right now, but the way the dots are connecting for me, myself personally, right now in my life and everything that I've been through, you can
mhm,
always look back. You can't see it when you're going through it. You're like, why is this happening to me? But when you look
right,
back and you're like, that happened to me. Okay, if I hadn't gone through that, da 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 da, da, this wouldn't happen. And then if that
right,
hadn't happened, then this wouldn't happen. So,
right,
right. So you do definitely need to find the blessing and just know that there is a blessing in it, even if you can't see it, just you got to believe that. And I found it to be true in pretty much everything. It's crazy, especially with my professional career.
mhm,
The way I can connect these dots right now is the way I'm sitting on this microphone right now and talking to you guys, knowing that I wanted to be Black Barbara Walters, knowing that I used to be an announcer on NPR radio for 4 years in college, after
yes,
I decided not to be Black Barbara Walters, knowing that I used to want to do voiceover. I have done voiceover actually, but just be on the microphone basically, right?
right.
And how all this has happened, knowing all of the projects I've worked on for toxic clients that are showing up, and what I learned from that is showing up, in this, and just I
Yeah,
mean, it's crazy. So you got to know that everything we go through is for a reason. And some people
absolutely.
are really struggling right now. They might not want to hear it, but I promise you that's what's going on. Stephanie, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. It has been truly unexpected. Not at all what I thought I was going to hear, but so interesting and powerful and just really like, wow. So thank you for being with us today and sharing your story and whatever blessings it brings to you from being able to share it. I'm so glad that you're able to get that because this one is a tough one to pull up.
Yeah, but thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
And blessings to you going forward and,
Thank
in your
you.
platform. I'm sure that it is going to touch a lot of people who need to hear these stories. And, who knows what this is going to manifest for you. So I think that you're definitely
I
in
hope so.
in your zen.
Do you want to share like where they can find you if they want to talk to you more or find you on social, something like that?
Well, my social media, I'm more so on Facebook than I am on Instagram. But my Facebook is Stephanie Davis. I don't have one of those fancy, fancy, fancy.
I can link it
Okay.
in the bio. I'll link it in the
Yeah,
description.
put my links in there. You can put my Instagram too, but I like to have discussions. I like to dialogue with people about
Yeah.
different things. It could be, relationships with, women, relationships with guys, politics, society, Black community, all things I like to talk about. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate the shout out. Thank you.
Yeah, invite Stephanie to the
Invite me to the
party. She's
party.
fun. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next
Thank you.
episode.